Well, hey everybody, Astara blessings to everyone. It's also the spring equinox, the day when the sun, let's see, sun travels into Aries. All this happens at 2:24 p.m. today. The sun traveling into Aries, Ostara begins. It's also the spring equinox. Ostara is basically one of the pagan holidays. It's also a Wiccan holiday that where we celebrate the coming of spring, the let's see, new beginnings. The earth is awakening. Basically, things are starting to grow. A lot of it's usually centers around the 21st day of March, but this time it's on the 20th when all this happens. And so Ostara you can think of it all starting at 2:24 p.m. So give yourself 24 hours or celebrate Ostara whenever you want to. I always at this time go out and take an egg. And now that I have my own chickens again, I just take one of theirs and I bury an egg out by the garden. And I do that for to celebrate new growth and to bring in a good harvest at the end of the season. You can decorate the egg or not. I sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how I feel at the moment. Lots of ways you can celebrate, though. You can start your seeds inside today if you want to. I think that we're going to probably start some Hungarian paprika today. The other peppers my husband just transplanted them into 1 gallon pots yesterday. They're about yay high and they're starting to bud. And so we have to pull all that off and keep them pruned so that they get real bushy. And when we finally do put them out, that's not going to be for a while. That's going to be a couple months from now. So. Well, we might be able to put them out, during the day or something in May, but we'll have to bring them back in because here we're at 3,000 feet above sea level. So, that just doesn't work out well. Sometimes we can have frost, so we can't really start anything in the garden that's tender until the beginning of June. The other stuff, onions and things like that, we can put out. Peas, we can start, but they're really not going to start coming up until the end of May anyway. So we have a shorter growing season here. So things like corn, you have to choose like the 65-day varieties because otherwise you're not going to have enough time because you never know. You just never know when it's going to frost here. So that's just one of and last year, the season was so weird. I don't even know what to expect this year. So, but anyway, that's all I needed to say here about what's going on calendar wise. So I'm going to put this over here. Let's go ahead and start with the runes and get the significators for the reading going. Again, last week we had a week where both readings tended to dovetail together, and what I did was I put both of them in a post on the blog over at Stepping Aside. The web address there is imsteppingaside.com, and you can check that out if you want to read the write-ups. I put the write-ups under both, but I did them together because they seem to reinforce one another. So again, just like the week before. So we may be in that wave right now where that's happening. It doesn't always happen, but it seems to come in waves where it'll happen for a little while and then it won't, and then it will, and then it won't. So I don't know. But today's rune from the Elder Futhark, the as above side of things, is Laguz. Laguz is about flow, generally flow from spirit. And it can also be used, you can see it kind of looks like a hook. It can be used as a magical hook, visualizing it in meditation to, if you're an empath or something, where you feel everybody's energies really strongly. One thing you can do, and you should do this, especially if you've been out to a big box store or you're in a crowd of people or whatever, you need to cleanse yourself of all that energy that could be sticking to you. And so you would take Laguz and you would visualize it as a magical hook to draw back your energy to you. Some people call that process cutting cords. To me, the visual of that is too harsh, but that's just my opinion. It doesn't have to be your opinion. I prefer to see those energetic channels that we create dissolving. And that way, if you need to engage again, that's fine, but you can pick and choose, what it is you're going to engage with and not allow intrusive energies that want to, because intrusive energies with people, they'll just see it and they'll naturally gravitate towards somebody who's empathic. And it's like if you're like in a grocery checkout line, if you're not going through, the self-serve thing, if you're in a grocery checkout line and people behind you start telling you your life stories, you might be an empath. They just naturally do that with somebody like this. And it happens to me all the time. And not so much anymore because I don't generally go through grocery lines, but I do it myself. But when you do, people will start talking to you. At least pre-COVID they did. And now they're starting to do that again, and they'll just talk to you about all kinds of personal things. And I mean, I've had people stop us when we used to do walks. I would have this one lady who was a neighbor at the time. She stopped us and had to tell us this big long story. It took a half hour, and we had to go back home. We didn't have any more time to do our walk, and but she needed to talk, and we didn't know her. I mean, we knew where she lived because she wasn't far from us. We've seen her, but we didn't know her and she didn't know us. But all of a sudden we're hearing everything. And it's like, okay, well, we'll sit and listen because that's what she needed, But that's the sort of thing with Laguz. It's that it recognizes that flow and that sometimes that flow's got to be interrupted, and it can be used as a magical hook if you're empathic in your meditation to draw back your energy to you. But it's about clairsentience. It's about intuition. But literally that higher awareness that tells you what you need to know. That's Laguz. So clearly something is going to involve the need for intuition or maybe setting some energetic boundaries or something like that. So at least that's what we know so far about the significators for the reading today. Well, let's see. Let's put... oh, this is interesting. Okay, so the lovely Laguz on one side, because it is lovely energy, and then the little bird cage of where is it at? There it is. Of Karser is the below side. I mean, if there was ever this one and Rubius, if there were ever two below side type of runes, these would be them. They're both considered an evil influence, not by me, but by geomancers of old. And basically, it's about self-imprisonment. I mean, it kind of even looks like a little cage, doesn't it? So you're getting stuck in perception. You're getting stuck in the ego. You're getting stuck somewhere. However, there is another way of looking at this where something is coming to an end. But there's a sense of finality when you're, incarcerated in some way, even if you're doing it to yourself, where you can't get out of some mode of perception that you're in. You can't let something go. That would be a version of Karser here. So restriction versus freedom, with Laguz, and then the restriction versus or restriction with Karser. But again, it can be other imposed restrictions. So maybe what's going on right now in the country that's got people stirred up, maybe it has something to do with that. The flow of truth is going to imprison someone. So I don't know. But if not, then if it's really about the individual here, then it's really about setting those boundaries and deciding what those are going to be for yourself. Or putting people in, or it could be also with Karser, putting someone else in that position of you're going to stay over there now. And again, if this is about energetic boundaries, that would make sense. You're setting the boundaries by pulling back your own energy with Laguz, and then understanding it intuitively as well as empathically, and then defining your boundaries around you. It could be that. So let's keep an open mind about Karser here, and just how nasty it is. It may not be. It may be that again, this could be a reading for people that are empathic, and talking about better boundaries for yourself, just to keep you feeling better. Because I can walk into a store, and I can walk by somebody, and all of a sudden, if I start feeling weird or upset or whatever, and there's no reason for it, then I'm picking it up from somebody else. So you have to be able to let go of that energy and put it where it belongs, right back with the individual instead of on you. Let's go ahead and cut the deck here, and we'll take a look at the 3 cards to support this. Well, we have the 4 of Wands. We haven't seen that in a while. The Ace of Swords and the King of Wands. So we have a run on Wands, run on the fire element. The King, of course, is from the court. The Ace, I tend to view, well, the Ace is said to have all of the energy of the entire suit that it's governing. But I kind of liken it to more of a major arcana feel, the Aces I do. And then, of course, you have the 4, which is simply from the minor arcana, the 4 of Wands. But so is the Ace of Swords. And so let's just take a look here. Let's take a look at, let's just leave them in the order that they're in. I think I can read it that way. But here you have the 4 of Wands. Now here you have a celebration, a marriage. You see the couple in the background there. This was then, or this is now, or this is then, or however. You see the line of demarcation right here, that dual line. So there's a feeling of separation. This is now, this was then, type of thing. But here you have a marriage, a new foundation. Just the poles alone, the staffs alone, look like the structure, like they're building a new foundation together. You see the 3 bouquets held high, so mind, body, spirit. You see the big castle behind them. You see the bridge here, the arched bridge. You see the triplicity there, although this is a 4. You also see the crossed garland up above. Now, if you look at the cross in the X, in an X pattern in the Elder Futhark, you're looking at the rune Gebo. And Gebo is balanced energy exchange. It's also the gift. It's also marriage and partnership. And so when I read this card, I can't help but look at this also in terms of that rune. But 4 is about balance and structure and foundation and grounding. It's literally a change in the structure of your life here today. Whether you're getting married today or not, it doesn't matter. But maybe there's a new partnership that's developing today that's going to change how you see things, that's going to catalyze some new opportunities for you. Wands as the fire element, you're looking at energy that is catalytic. You're looking at energy that is about motivation and new growth and new opportunities. That it occurs today on the spring equinox on Ostara is sort of probably relevant to the idea of new beginnings here. So that's an interesting synchronicity there. But again, it suggests that there's going to be a change in the structure here of your life. Again, maybe there's a new partnership, maybe a new relationship of some kind is forming, whether it's business or whether it's personal, doesn't matter. Or it could be a strengthening of those bonds that are happening here today with you and somebody else. But you see all the people from the wedding are back here, and it's just they've done it. They've gotten married. They've done their hand fasting, however you want to see this, and just basically we have a new life that's forming, a new partnership that's forming, and from there we go to the Ace of Swords. Like with all of the aces, a hand reaches out from the cloud. This one is holding a sword straight up. You're seeing it's pointed up towards spirit, though. Whenever you see a crown, that's higher awareness. That's coming from spirit. And you see the victory. Something is victorious. So this was a positive experience, this new partnership, whatever this is, or a strengthening of a partnership. This is a serious type of thing. This is suggesting higher awareness. So something other than themselves. One thing I want to say about this that I didn't is what you're doing in order to come together with one another. These 2 poles represent the masculine and feminine within, or the receptive and projective polarities within on either side, and one is assigned to each person. You could look at it that way. In order to come together, things need to be resolved within. And in this case, it has been. And they've come together to build a new life together. So there's some of that decision that got made to align together in a way that reflected not the ego, but higher awareness. You see that same type of experience here with the little garlands that are there that you do up here. So there's some synchronicity there. So far we have a 5 numerology for the reading. The king is not going to have a number associated with it, but if it did, it would be 11, 12, 13, 14, that'd be 14. So again, you're looking at a 5 numerology with the king. And 5 is about change. It's about freedom versus restriction. And again, when you look at also protection. But when you look at Laguz and Karser, you're looking at that same idea of freedom versus restriction. So you can see some synchronicity there with the 5 numerology between the 4 of Wands and the Ace of Swords. And also if there were a numerology attached to the court, which again there isn't, but if there were, you would continue to count, and from the 10 you would go 11 for the page, 12 for the knight, 13 for the queen, and 14 for the king. So that'd be a 5. So you see some synchronicity there. But with the Ace of Swords, you're talking about the genesis of new thought. Swords is the air element, and so anything that's the mental aspect of life, the thought process, legal issues, balance, decisions, self-assertion, so communication, interactions. And the Ace of Swords is reminding us in the very beginning of the suit that it has to come from higher awareness, that this is a soul experience. And then, of course, you have 2 through 10, and then the court where, well, maybe not so much. You see how the ego gets in the way of things and detracts us from that initial experience of complete understanding, right? That the aces all give us. It's the new path. It's something new, is something new that's victorious. Again, likely having to do with coming together in a new partnership with somebody or strengthening an existing partnership with somebody. Now, the King of Wands, lastly, we see a king, again, as if you've been here before, you know I'm not a fan of the kings. I don't feel they look you in the eye, which to me is a problem. And so here you have one that's focused on the past and controlling that. You see his little salamander, his little elemental, that's related to the fire element, there on the ground next to him. He's in fiery clothes. He's got kind of an orangish red gown on. His hair is all red. And then there's also the yellow here behind, where you see the lions up here on the back, but then you also see the Ouroboros there, which is the little salamander that's reaching around and grabbing its tail. It's a sign of unified expression, of coming full circle. And basically, with this guy, you're talking about not only just a king, you're talking about an authority figure, an older man who's knowledgeable. He's a wise counselor. He's a warrior. He can be cruel and bigoted if ill-dignified. That would be the reverse. Not dealing with authority too well. But then in its upright presentation, though, he's a mentor. He can understand things from a past perspective, given that he's looking at the past. He can understand the greater picture, can give you advice. He can do all kinds of things like that. So perhaps in the partnership, we have a new perception forming. Now that we've strengthened that with the 4, we have the idea of a new perception, or maybe some legal things that have to take place with respect to the new partnership or the strengthened partnership. Excuse me. And maybe you need to go and talk to someone in authority, the King of Wands, to kind of to help shape your new perspective on things, and so to help you make the decisions that you need to make. Again, if you're with this whole idea of new beginnings right now today, Maybe this strengthening of a partnership or a creation of a new partnership has to do with forming a new business or something. And there, all kinds of legal things are going to come into play. You've got to get all your ducks in a row. You have to, formulate a business plan. You have to decide, how am I going to pay taxes on this? Do I form as a corporation, an LLC? And from there, if you have an LLC, you get to decide whether or not you're going to do your books as a corporation and pay taxes as a corporation, or if you want to, at least it used to be, or you want to go and do it as a partnership. And so I've done that, and we had to decide, well, do we incorporate, or do we do an LLC and organize it, in this case, as a partnership? And that's what we chose to do. So that nobody cares, that the government doesn't care how you do it. You just got to pick a way to do it, right? And so lots of legal things, got to be aware of what the county and the city and the state and the federal kinds of laws and rules that exist that may impact what you do. So lots of legal things, and that could have to do with the Ace of Swords. But if it doesn't, then it could be after you've made this commitment with somebody. Now you're starting a new path together you're going to be making decisions together. And so, well, hopefully, unless, this is not as strong as you think it is, but that would be if it was reversed, I guess. But the whole idea is that you're now going to speak with a different voice, perhaps. And it's not that you're not going to disagree with one another, you will, but at some point you may have to come together and speak with a single voice. And so that may reflect, after discussion, some new perception on your part, on both of your parts. And from there, again, you may need to go see somebody in authority or someone you trust to give you advice about where to go from here, if need be. Again, it's having the freedom and the intuition to know that something needs to happen here, that I need to define myself in a way that's maybe a little more structured. And that's where I think the Karser Geomancy rune comes into play. You're not necessarily, well, I guess you could be, in a sense, placing some self-imposed restriction on you, and to know where you can be free and where you can't, where you can let your creativity flow, but within a fixed framework, kind of like Hagalaz, the rune Hagalaz, transformation within a fixed framework. Same kind of process, I think, here. So you've come together, again, let's say this again, you've come together, either redefining a partnership, strengthening it in some way, or creating a new one that's affecting your foundation, affecting the very structure of your life. And from there, new ideas come about, new perceptions come about, new interactions have to come about. Understanding the legal aspects of all of it has to happen. And then, if there are any, and then you may need to go and help and get that process further defined by someone who actually has been there and has done that and can offer some advice, that may save you a bunch of nonsense. How often people start businesses, they have no idea what they're doing. It's a whole new process. It's new, it's exciting, it's wonderful. You get ahead of yourself and you do something you can't do, right? And maybe you have to go buy business insurance, and so maybe you haven't done that, and so you're starting to do business and you haven't gotten the business insurance yet. You're still trying to figure out who you want to go with, and then all of a sudden you get there and you realize, oh, okay, some of the stuff I just started doing I can't do. My insurance company's not going to cover me if something happens if I do this, and so there's a lot of restructuring that goes on when a business is brand new, if that's in fact what this is. But again, even if this is a marriage, you may be blending money at that point, and you need to, or you may choose not to. You may choose to keep your own separate accounts. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to file, right? When it comes time to do taxes, are you going to file single? Or are you going to file jointly? How are you going to do that? So there needs to be some changes that have to be made, right? And some updates to this or that with the IRS, for example. And so lots of things. And so maybe you go to a lawyer, maybe you go to your father, maybe you go to just somebody you know to get some help with that. But the idea is, where can your creativity flow from all of this, and where do you need to set boundaries? So that's going to be the issue that you're going to be thinking about. And again, if you're empathic at all, and I don't think I can really read this from that sense, but if you're empathic at all, you know what that feels like, where if you just let all of it come in on you, all that energy come in on you, then you're having to figure out, well, whose emotions am I feeling? Mine or somebody else's? And so you have to take that time to reassess things. And in this case, get rid of that energy, let it go back to the person that it came from, and keep yours to yourself and start over again and set those boundaries. Well, it's the same thing when you reestablish a partnership or strengthen one or create one. You have to then define, what's that going to look like? What are the boundaries going to be? How are we going to function? Because if it's a business, you can't have one partner out there doing whatever they feel like that can damage that business, and the other person trying to scramble to pick up the pieces. That does not work. You have to be on the same page. You have to be in agreement as to what your business policies are. And so that's where I think the Ace of Swords comes in. You're having to deal with legal agreements, maybe, to establish all of this. And again, getting the advice that you need. So you either don't get yourself into some kind of place you can't move out of with Carcer, or you set the boundaries that are important to set with Carcer. So you can again, that's why I said at the beginning of this, let's be really careful how we define Carcer here, because it could be a really positive step here in this whole process that the cards are talking about. So I guess think about this, if this is not about a business, but it's about a friendship or maybe a relationship that's moving forward into marriage, there's just some things that you have to think about and understand and let go of the things that don't matter. That's another way we can look at Laguz, and figure out a way that you can structure things where the boundaries make sense, and everyone's in agreement as to what those are, and that they feel comfortable to everybody, that this is how we're going to conduct ourselves within this new experience, this new partnership. And keep and again, because it's new, you're going to have to keep that dialogue going for a while, maybe forever. I think it's healthy in any relationship to continually reassess and to make sure everybody's still on the same page. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And at least in my opinion. And, but again, there's some change with the 5 overall numerology here, the potential numerology of 5 for the king. If you want to look at it that way. I generally don't, but if it's going to align with what I've got in the other 2 cards, then I do mention it. But it reinforces the idea of protecting what you have, protecting what you're building, and the symbol for the 5 is the pentagram, and that's protection. It's the star, and it's about protection. But it's also about intuition and freedom and understanding the constraints that are on you. You look at that in terms of the points of the pentagram. Is spirit up at the top, or if it's inverted, it would be physical reality at the bottom. It would represent that. And then you would have air, fire, water, and earth. Well, those are all of the elements that go into that's the energy that we use to manifest our own creation here. And so there's going to be constraints on you. You can't simply just have a free-for-all and let it all go wherever you want to do it. That's not where it should be coming from. Laguz is suggesting it's coming from higher awareness, how you structure all of that. And if you let the ego take control, then, well, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. You're not going to have people on the same page in this partnership. You're not going to have any of that. It's going to be people working at cross purposes from one another, and the partnership, whatever it is, whatever type it is likely not going to succeed. And so I think that this is a pretty straightforward reading. Again, I mean, even this suggests boundaries if you look at it right. They're in the middle between these. So these are the boundaries. These are the foundation. It's the structure that they're going to, the agreement that they've made to come together willingly into this new partnership, this new relationship of some kind. And again, I've also added the possibility of strengthening it. So as part of the four. See how this resonates. Again, it could be simply about a friendship that you have that's changing, where you seem to be a little more on the page with one another. You're becoming closer friends, maybe. It could be simply about that, and understanding what that's all about. It could be a couple that's trying to advance their relationship to marriage, and maybe the king is representing a marriage counselor to where you go, or it could be, or if it's a religious type of orientation, he could represent a priest or a minister in your life, where you go and you get some counseling about the kinds of things that spiritually you might be thinking about in terms of your marriage or your partnership. So the king could represent any number of authority figures in your life, or wise mentors in your life, where you might need a little advice about it. And if you do, then by all means seek it out. They're likely going to give you, even if they just end up telling you stuff that doesn't apply, at least you know that, right? So there's you can look at this either way you want to, I guess. But the idea, I think, is that we flow from spirit, and whatever boundaries we need to set, we do, and we go into this eyes open, and you try to get as much information as you can to solidify whatever decision you've made with that other person. So I guess that's it for a Monday. But I hope it's something along the business lines for people. I hope that it's starting something new in that regard, because that's always exciting. It's fun. It's scary. It really pushes you to your limits, and where you're having to make decisions about things that you know nothing about. But trust me, over time you're going to know a lot about it. So whether or not you chose the rightly or whether you chose wrongly, you're going to have to make a course correction maybe, but that's okay. It's all about learning and growing and understanding what you're doing. And so if it is a business, that's exciting. And it would be great if that's what it was. But again, if it's a marriage, you're still kind of a business, aren't you? You're this partnership that is now new and growing and developing, and maybe you'll need some advice along the way, and you have to come into alignment with one another and all of that. So you want to keep the idea of flow going and drop resistance from things, where you consider the other person's point of view and see if it doesn't change your own. Or maybe you'll impact the other person and they'll change their point of view based on what you're saying. So it's kind of a meeting of the minds kind of reading here in a way, and defining how we flow together with one another, and what boundaries we need to place on all of that. So anyhow, that's it. We'll see what happens on Thursday, if this will continue or if we'll turn a whole new page. Potentially lots of things could be happening this week, and we just don't know, do we? And where all that's going to take us and what people are going to think about it. And well, I mean, we kind of have an idea of what's going to happen, but you don't know. Not till you know, right? So thanks for watching. Again, everything's out on the blog. The This Week Ahead's out, and the newsletter went out on Saturday. Let's see. Also, the Exploring Tarot for the week is out. That also went out Sunday morning. Also, the daily correspondences for work and magic for this coming week, they're all up there on the blog over at Stepping Aside. Again, that web address is imsteppingaside.com. If you forget, just down below the video, there's something that says show more or something. Just click on that. It opens up a window and it gives you a bunch of stuff, different all the where I am on social media, where else I write on Substack, Medium, and Patreon. There's links to all that. And and again to the blog. So if you want to go and check out that, that'd be very cool. I'd love you to do that. And click subscribe and come back and join our little tarot and rune family. And we do this twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. And sometimes, again, they dovetail together and sometimes they don't. But it just gives people something to think about, that maybe they didn't consider before. So anyhow, thanks for watching. And we'll talk again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Take care of yourself. Take care of one another. And blessed be.